Hello and welcome to World Talks. I'm Diana Skaya. It's been a hectic week for the Ukrainian president. Now, Zelenskyy's recent meetings in Washington and London have highlighted growing tensions in the transatlantic alliance. His confrontation with President Donald Trump sparked worries over the future of America's support to the war-torn country, while European leaders vowed to ramp up their backing. But now, is the EU really prepared to step up, or does it still rely on Washington? Joining me now in studio live to discuss these unfolding events is Wojciech Przybylski, editor-in-chief of Visegrad Insight. Welcome to the program. So happy to have you back here.
Thank you for having me.
Wojciech, I mean, it was quite a show, if that's what we can call it. But I mean, let's talk about, what happened in the Oval Office, but also especially what happened in London. What are the most important outcome of this London summit, which Keith Starmer hosted, and also your takes on what took place at the Oval Office?
Well, let's start with Europe. There is a unity of leadership in Europe around Zelenskyy. We have seen immediately after the Oval Office meeting a series of messages of support to President Zelenskyy and to Ukraine overall. So leaders of Europe were compelled to express solidarity with Zelenskyy, seeing that he might have been not in a comfortable position, or Ukrainians might not have felt very comfortably about the continuous support of the West. And the conference in London and the warm welcome there, of course, was heartwarming, but did not deliver any breakthrough decisions in terms of defense and capabilities of Europe. It was a step in the right direction, but still a small step. UK has committed additional billions of pounds, but hundreds more are necessary to sustain military effort in Ukraine, not to mention, apart from budgets, the capabilities Europe needs to provide in order not just to protect Ukraine, but to create a credible defense posture itself.
You mentioned important facts right there. I mean, just to divide it here, Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz said that he didn't hear of any U.S. plans to reduce their military presence in Poland, but a Washington Post report suggested that the U.S. would withdraw some 20,000 troops from Europe. Is there anything that you can say on such conflicting reports? Since, I mean, we're talking about...
Well, I can't say Poland is all of Europe, and there are U.S. troops on European soil, and that means many nations. There are troops in Italy, there are troops in Germany. These two countries have one of the largest trade deficits with U.S., and U.S. clearly, under the leadership of Donald Trump, says there won't be any free riding on security ticket. And these two nations, therefore, are most exposed to military pressure points. The U.S. is willing to signal on the question of, well, if you get troops to station in your country and enabling good business, then you have to pay for it. It's brute, it's radical in terms of transatlantic relations, but it's something that most of the American public apparently stands for after many, many years when we've been living under the peace dividend, and Europe in particular has been benefiting from that.
Wojciech, is Europe ready to handle all of this
No.
by itself?
No.
Why?
The short question is no. Not yet would be a bit longer answer.
What's it going to take?
Well, it's going to take a couple of years. I mean, for Poland, it will take a couple of years before all of the plans that have bipartisan agreement and already a declared budget of 5% GDP will make it a clear, effective military force that produces credible deterrence. So it takes, since a decision has been made a few years ago, it takes a few years to complete that mission. And in a number of capitals across Europe, and not only in the capitals, in the societies, that decision hasn't been yet taken. So there isn't a uniform European mindset and will to create a deterrence. And to win wars and to create peace, you need two elements. You need the willpower, and you need manpower and hard power, meaning the resource to defend yourself.
Just a little bit earlier, you said that, what the UK offered Zelenskyy, more could have been offered. How do you think Poland views this development, and what role can Poland actually play in bolstering Ukraine's defense capabilities?
Well, Poland needs to bolster its own defense capabilities after donating a lot of its equipment in the first years of the war. It might have not been enough, but it's been critical equipment delivered to Ukraine. After the stockpiles have been to a large extent emptied or reduced, they need to be replenished with new equipment. This is the work in progress. And credible defense of the NATO's eastern flank, the country that is on the border with Ukraine and enables logistics as one of the key countries that can do that, is of critical importance to Ukraine. Also as a safe harbor to the millions of Ukrainian migrants.
Andrzej Duda said that, if I just go back to what happened last Friday, Duda said that Zelenskyy should return and continue speaking to President Trump. How do you think Poland can facilitate this sort of meeting? Should it take place? And what do you think that Ukraine could do to kind of soothe what happened on Friday?
We are in no position, Poland is in no position to mediate between Ukraine and the United States. This is not our influence. Our influence is in Europe. And again, what happens in Europe will be of critical importance to Ukraine. But the advice we have heard from a good friend of Mr. Zelenskyy, someone who has visibly earned his trust, and the trust has been mutual over the many years of the presidency, I think is a good advice, that the talks need to be continued, and despite this harsh treatment, which definitely has had impact on the ego, as on any politician, there would be such an effect. It must be overcome in the interest of the national interests of Ukraine, and that talks need to continue until they reach a satisfactory moment, and hopefully there is one in the future.
But you're not saying that you don't think that Poland would be able to mediate, let's say, between these talks between Russia and Ukraine? Trump took to...
Russia and Ukraine, for sure, not. We will not be mediating between Russia and Ukraine.
Donald Trump criticized Zelenskyy's recent statement on the end of the war in Ukraine. Now he's saying that it's very, very far away, and saying that the U.S. would not, quote, put up with it much longer. This was on his Truth Social post, posted on the 3rd of March. Why would you say, I have to ask you this a little bit, shifting gear here, why such a narrative that's almost, many experts have taken out to say that he's really going in for the Russian narrative here in War of Words? Why? Why is this happening now?
No, I have no idea why Donald Trump is eagerly having this opening to Russia, except that every other U.S. president at the beginning of each term, once it's been won in elections, has had a certain opening towards Russia because of the critical relationship between Washington and Moscow as two nuclear powers and number of international global interests they need to secure. We know that this relation rhetorically might look good, but on practical steps, we have seen a decision of Donald Trump from last week, just before he met Zelenskyy, to extend sanctions on Russia for until the end of this year. And also the talks between Russia and the US in Istanbul ended in no public announcement, no press conference, which doesn't signal that they ended very well. So I think there is a play, maybe even a personal tendency to talk to the strong men of this world, regardless if they are democratically elected or they are autocrats, and Donald Trump likes that. He also likes to talk to Emmanuel Macron. So he likes this relationship to people who demonstrate certain capability of leadership and strength. And he speaks highly of them. We may like it, we may dislike it, that's his theater. The acts of the US is what matters. And so far, there were no indications that the U.S. would cave in and accept Russia's positions on Ukraine or on Europe.
So you're calling it a game? Yeah.
I'm calling it very unfortunate and despicable, and horrific acts of political narrative, of what Trump, whatever he hopes to achieve with that. I do not believe that the United States stand for it, and in all forms of its government, including the Congress, and including many of his advisors.
Wojciech, EU leaders are going to meet for a special summit to discuss continued support for Ukraine and EU defense coming up here on March 6th. Do we know what to expect from this?
Well, we can expect that there will be talks of finance. EU is not good in arms, in weapons systems, in armies, but it is very good on finance. And in order to win wars, in any wars in the world, in the history of the world, you need money. So EU is going to talk money. It's going to talk about how to reprogram some of the current EU funds and how to enable countries of the EU also to make purchases with a bit of a bigger leeway. It won't be too big after this summit, but still there will be a step in the direction that for many countries will be important, signaling that yes, you should be spending more on defense.
What long-term strategies would you say that Poland, EU allies, should adopt in order to deter further Russian aggression and try to maintain stability in the region?
Well, in times of chaos and revolutionary times, some people say, what matters the most is leadership. It is very much personal leadership, and the call of the leaders of European nations is so much important. So we need those leaders to speak honestly to societies about the need of military service, of sacrifice in the name of security, in order to buy in the new social contract on which the security will be built, which will involve more spending on things we may not like but are necessary before we can spend the money on different other utilities like social spending or investment. Or there will need to be smart investment, strategic investment that will boost both military capabilities and abilities to be prosperous nations, and new types of models of economic progress need to be credibly developed. So we will see. Time will show, and I think a lot remains in the hands of the leaders.
And just very briefly, can we actually say that this is one of the first times that you would see a kind of EU nations and you're becoming this? I mean, we talked about unity in the beginning. This trying to become this unified.
The first time we have seen some unity in the threat perception was at the beginning of the new invasion of Russia in 2022, when EU strategic compass has been announced for the first time, allowing a language of enemy, the political language, because politics requires identification of who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. And this was strategic compass of the EU first time announced after many, many attempts before to have a unified position in foreign security policy. The road is not complete, but definitely activity of Donald Trump is also very much helping EU to stay united. So we should maybe again be thankful to the US president for putting Europe together.
Thank you so much, Wojciech Przybylski, editor-in-chief of Visegrad Insight, for all your input here and insights here with World Talks.
Thank you.
And that completes this edition of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm Diana Skaya. Thanks for watching, and stay with us for more news and features.